Hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Hardie-Matthews. I head up the account management team here at Workbooks, and also on today's session is my colleague Ruth from the marketing team. Ruth will be keeping an eye on the practicalities, so if anybody's having any problems with sound or anything, Ruth will pick up on that, and she'll also be keeping an eye on any questions that come in during the session. The latest version of Workbooks was released on the 12th of March, and in common with the last few releases, we've kept the focus on enhancements to provide you with a better user experience and hopefully to make the product much more usable in terms of showing data when and where you need it. As always, if you've attended these sessions before, you'll know that I use a mixture of slideware and demonstrating enhancements within the product, and I will put a slide up towards the end where there'll be an opportunity to ask your questions. Although, of course, if you think of things as we're going through particular topics, do feel free to pop your questions into the question section. So let's start with a high-level view of what we're going to cover today. We are going to be talking about enhancements we've made to emails, including something that we've called the email assistant, and it's probably the most significant change in the most recent release. So I'll spend most time looking at that. But in addition, there has been a small but very useful change to reporting, allowing you to wrap the header text or the column values like you can in a tool like Excel, for example. You've also got some options about how you align the text, so we'll look at that. There's been a couple of other small reporting enhancements, but useful ones, and I'll talk about those when we get onto the reporting section. Another change is about the ability to relate people records to other records in the system. So it's about relating people to opportunities, to cases and transaction records. Again, more details when we get there. We've also made a change to hopefully enhance your form layouts. It's about whether or not you show the field label next to the field, and if you do show it, where does it appear? I'm also going to talk about a new file storage plugin that we've got. Microsoft has made a change to the ability to use iframes to link into SharePoint, because we had a file storage plugin that allowed you to link into SharePoint, but they've made changes which has made us have to rework our file storage plugin. That has actually had a spin-out benefit really of being able to drag and drop files directly into Workbooks, as well as you can still access SharePoint files via Workbooks. And then there's the final bullet point, the other, the miscellaneous, if you like. Like many other releases, there's a handful of enhancements that I've just grouped together under other. So let's look at the first one about email improvements. As I mentioned, this is probably the most significant area of change, particularly this new email assistant. You can see there it talks about templates and snippets. We've had email templates for a long time, but we've now got snippets. I'll talk more about those when we're in the tool. We're aware that while we do definitely have some customers who already use Workbooks to send emails from and use our templated emails, we're aware that the majority of you currently don't do that. So what I'm hoping, very much hoping, is that as a result of the changes that you're going to see today, it will persuade you to start using email templates and these new things called snippets, because they're a really great way to produce consistent messaging from within the tool, stopping you having to rekey information and therefore saving you time. As well as the email assistant, there's been a number of other enhancements to emails. I'm not going to go through them in huge detail right now, but I will when we're in the product, I'll talk about them. But for those of you who've used email templates, you'll be familiar with the fact that you can insert what we call placeholders or merge fields into them. You can now do that include information about the sender. You can also schedule emails to be sent at a specified date and time of your choice, so that's quite handy. We've made it easier. If anybody has actually tried to configure their email account within Workbooks, in all honesty, you might have found that a little bit tricky, and we've made that a bit easier. So hopefully you'll be able to set that up with much greater ease these days if you need to. The bottom two bullet points aren't specifically about email improvements, in fairness. They're about changes to rich text editor fields. We've made it so that you can drag and drop images into there, and we've also improved the toolbar, the formatting toolbar that appears at the top of a rich text field. Rather than just talking about these bullet points, I think it'll be much easier to show you all of this within Workbooks. So I'm going to open up a demo environment, this one, where I'm logged in as a salesperson called Anthony Khan. Sorry, my screen just popped off then. I'm hoping it's come back and that everybody can see my screen. Just a slight technical glitch. So within here, I've got a shortcut to a person record called, this is Alan Whitehead's record. Let me just make that a bit bigger. If any of you have attended these release webinars before, you've probably met Alan Whitehead before because it's the go-to record that I use for these. But just bear with me. For the purposes of what I'm about to show you, pretend that I've just created Alan's record because we've had a sales inquiry from him regarding some briefcases that we sell. So just hold that in your mind. So if I'm a salesperson, I'm going to want to send Alan some information, and I want to send it via email. So on this section here, which is what we call a card section, you can see there's an email symbol. And if I click on it and choose to send an email using my Workbooks email, up opens a draft new email. It automatically has been set up to show my default signature in the body of the email. That bit's not new, we've had that for ages. But if any of you on the call at the moment aren't even using Workbooks to send emails, you won't see signatures in your emails unless you set them up, which you can do within your preferences. Let me just very quickly show you where. So each user within their preferences, you can see there's a section about halfway down on the left that says my signatures. And here I've got two. I've got one that's called Anthony Khan. Remember, I'm logged in as Tony, and that's set as the default signature, which we've just seen. But there's also what we've just called a casual signature. And it's not the default one, but it is available to use. So back to my email. As I say, the signature part isn't new, but what is new is that column on the right-hand side, which is this new email assistant, as we're calling it. For those of you who have used email templates within Workbooks previously, you might remember that to send them or to choose which template to apply, you had to go to the top of the email and select from a button at the top. But now you can see there's a section here on the right called templates with the number 5 in brackets after it. And the templates are grouped into different categories. So you can see, I'll just open a couple. You can see that they've been grouped into sort of sensible areas. If you're not sure of what the content is, in fact, I've got two here that are called the same thing, so maybe the content's different or maybe it's not, I don't know. But what I can do is click on the little eye symbol on the far right, and it gives me a preview of the content of that template. If I want to use it, I would simply click on the apply button, or I can cancel out and say, no, that wasn't what I wanted. Maybe look at the next one. I think in actual fact on this demo database, the two things are the same, but hopefully you get the idea that you can get that preview and see what it is that you might be using if you're not sure. So that's one way to find the templates that you want. But of course, if you've got a lot, we've only got a handful here, but if you've got a lot, you don't want to have to go clicking through all of them. But hopefully you know the name of the template that you're looking for, at least part of it. So there's a search button, a search dialog box at the top. And this is about an initial sales inquiry. So I'm just going to type in the word initial, click return or enter. And you can see I do have a template that's called initial sales inquiry. Again, I can click on the I if I want to, but if I use this regularly and know what the content is, I don't need to, I can simply click on it. And you'll see that what it's done is it's dropped that template in on the left-hand side. Notice here that the email starts with "Hi, Alan." Remember, it's Alan that I'm communicating with. And that's because the template itself included a placeholder to use the recipient's first name. So it just saves you time. And I'll show you a little bit more about that in a few minutes. In addition to the templates in the email assistant on the right, you can also see a section called snippets with a 3 in brackets after it, and down at the bottom a section called signatures with 2 in brackets after it. Snippets and templates are similar in as much as they are reusable pieces of boilerplate text that you can insert into the body of your email. But the principal difference between the two, or differences between the two, are that templates can include placeholders, like the one here, so that it now says, "Hi, Alan," and snippets can't include those placeholders. And with templates, you can only add one to the body of your email. If I chose a different template now, it would overwrite what's there. Whereas snippets tend to be, they can be as long or short as you want them to be, but they tend to be shorter pieces of information, and you can insert multiple snippets at relevant places within your email if you choose to. So let's do that. If you notice, about halfway down through the body of my email, there's a sentence that says, "An image of the product you inquired about is below." Well, it's not, is it? So let's sort that out. Notice I've clicked inside the body of the email. I don't know if you noticed, I'll click out again and back in. I'm not just doing that for effect. You might notice that when I click into the rich text editor, which is what the body of the email is, the formatting toolbar appears. And originally, I've already done this before getting on the line with you, originally it will appear looking like that. But there are two arrows on the right-hand side, which allows you to expand it, make it bigger, and reveal more formatting options than you've had previously. So remember that formatting bar hasn't gone if you were worried about it. It just means that you have to click within the field for it to appear. So I want to insert a picture of the briefcase that Alan has said that he's interested in. So I'm going back to my search bar at the top right, and I'm just going to type in B case. And you see there, we've got a couple of snippets that are to do with briefcases. And if I click on the first one, there's an image of one of the briefcases. And in actual fact, just to save you time, I don't have to click cancel. I can simply click on the eye of B case 2, and that will bring up that image. So, oh no, it was definitely briefcase 1 that I wanted. So I'll go back to that and click apply. And it's dropped that image in where my cursor was before. And that's what I mean. You could, if you chose to, add multiple snippets into your email. That particular snippet happened to contain an image, but they can contain images, they can contain text, they can contain a mixture of both if you like. So again, I'm going to search for another snippet that I know is on here about some early bird discount. So in my search dialog window, just typed in early, and here we go, early bird offer. Click on that, and it drops it in where my cursor was within the email on the left. Rather than using a snippet for an image, I could, if I wanted, drag and drop one in, which is much easier. Those of you who've been used to uploading images into our upload library and then getting them out of the upload library to put onto your email, you'll know that that was a bit clunky. But now, if I wanted to, I could just drag and drop the image in. I'm not going to right now, I've got one in there, but you could. And again, if you're familiar with sending emails, you might know that historically, what that would do is it would show the image, but it would be a link to the image in effect, and it wouldn't show in line in the body of your email, but now it does. So it's a much more professional looking email, in my opinion. If I take my search term out of my dialog box again, I mentioned, you see, we've got these two signatures here, and if I open up that dialog box, we've already seen these. When I went to Anthony's preferences, we could see that he had his more professional signature. We've also got his casual signature. So again, you could change the signature just by clicking on the appropriate one there. So hopefully, just from that short insight into the new email assistant, hopefully you can see how much easier it is now to build up your emails using text that either you've put together or a colleague has put together for you, using a combination of templates and snippets. It doesn't change the fact that you can still type in your own sentences as well. If you'd just been talking to Alan, you might want to start your email with, "It was great talking to you earlier," or whatever text you want to put in. But the fact that a lot of this is written for you will save time. It also, in my case, tends to reduce human error from mistypes and that kind of thing. Now, before I move away from the email assistant, I do just want to highlight a couple of other features connected with it. If you look towards the top right-hand corner, there's a little right arrow, and you can see as I hover over it, it says hide the email assistant, which is exactly what it does. It just collapses or conversely expands that panel on the right-hand side if you need more space to see your email. There's also, you'll have seen push pins in other parts of workbooks. If you don't want that panel to show by default, we kind of hope you do, but if you don't, then you can click on it and then it won't show by default. It will, when you come to it, look like this when you open a new email, but you can always still access it by opening it out like that. The other thing I wanted to highlight was when you think about these three sections, the templates, snippets, and signatures, they've all got this little square with an arrow next to it. And what it does, if I click on it, and I will in a moment, you can see manage your templates, manage your snippets, and manage your signatures. I'll click on the one next to manage your templates. It hops you out to where in workbooks you can actually set up or modify your templates. My login, Anthony Khan, doesn't have any, I haven't set up any under my own name, but if I click on all email templates, here they are. And this is where you would go to modify them if you chose to. If you can also get to exactly the same place. This is just a landing page for email templates. You can get to exactly the same page by using the start button and going to emails, and email templates, or if you wanted to go to snippets and signatures, you can see how that works. Now, if you've been using workbooks to create email templates, which you have been able to do for many years, you can create what we call simple ones, or you can create ones that are designed to be used with a particular record type, ones to be used with opportunities perhaps, or cases and so on. Until now, simple templates couldn't include those placeholders or those merge fields that I've referred to, but now they can. They can include fields for the recipient of the email. Now, I've tried this out several times practicing for this session and it's worked perfectly, but you know what live demos are like, so let's make sure it actually works this time. So all I did there, just to show you, was I clicked on new email template and it brought up this screen where I've got the choice of creating a specific record type template or a simple one, and it's the simple one I'm choosing. Just make it a bit bigger, slightly easier for you to see. I will just give it a silly name for now, just to get going with this. And again, I'll just give it a subject. And here we are in the body. There's that formatting toolbar popped up again because I've just clicked into the body of the email. If I scroll down, and you maybe wouldn't do this without knowing it was there, but if I scroll down beneath the body, it says add a recipient field. So in the body, if I were to type hi or dear or hello or whatever, in the recipient fields, you can see a bunch of sort of standard fields that exist on people records, because when you're emailing people, that you might want to include placeholders for within your email. So if I scroll down, I did that a little bit quickly, but I'll go back down. I could choose first name. You don't have to scroll through, by the way. If you know the name of the field, you can just start typing it here. If I was to start typing employer, for instance, I could just grab it. And there it is. Notice that because these are placeholders, they are strings of text with an @ symbol at either end, and that's the instruction that tells workbooks or tells the system, go and find the correct information for this recipient. And notice it says first recipient. If you were sending an email to 3 or 4 people, it can only put a placeholder in for the first recipient that you're sending this to. So this will say, hi, Alan, or hi, Jean, or whatever it says. And then this second row here would replace it with that particular person's employer name. Also, this was sort of standard fields, but if you wanted to get to custom fields that you've got on a person record, I'm going back to that recipient field underneath the body. I'm just starting to type the word person, and you'll see it comes up person with a right arrow. If any of you are used to reporting or building templates, actually, you'll know that what that means when I click on it is it will open a field to the right, giving me access to fields from the person record. And here they all are. There's all sorts of ones in here. I know there's a custom field for interests, so I'll just start typing that. There we go. And again, it's popped it into the body saying first recipient person interests. And you can go on, obviously my template isn't going to make any sense. If you just sent this out to somebody, it would be a bit strange, but hopefully you can see the principles of what I'm saying is that you can put these placeholders in. While we're talking about placeholders, actually, what I'm about to tell you isn't new, but lots of people don't realize that it's possible. There are some special placeholders that you can include in your email that return information about the current user, about the current date, and that sort of thing. They're not selectable from a pick list like the interests was for me, but we do have a list of them on our website. And if I just open this tab, hopefully you can see extra template placeholders. And here they are, the currently logged in user's name, the logged in user's email address, and so on. There's different date formats. We are hoping to make these easier for you to access within the tool, but I just wanted to highlight that they are available. If you're going to use them, I strongly recommend that you copy and paste them. I'm going to do that with the current date time, because if you get the syntax even slightly wrong, they won't work. So I've just copied that onto my clipboard and I'll just pop that into my nonsensical template as well. And hopefully when I use this, you'll see the effect of it. If I look towards the top right of the template, you can see there are form layout categories. We've had this previously. This is what kind of form layout do I want this template to be usable against. I'm not going to do anything with that at the moment. If I don't specify a category, it won't apply any limits to where I can use this. But the template category, you saw when we looked at the email assistant that there were categories for marketing and for sales and support. And if I look at the drop down here, you can see the same options. It's a multi-select pick list, so I could put it into multiple categories if I wanted to. If I don't specify a category, it will go into a category or a folder. It looks like a folder that's just called Other. So, as I say, I know it's a nonsensical template, but let's have a look and see if we can get it to work. So the first thing I'm going to do is save it. And for those of you who know about templates, you know that you have to share it with the right users. So I'm going to go to the sharing button towards the top right. And the quickest way, click on Add Rule, the quickest way for me to share it with all users is to share it with the Everyone group. So I'll do that. And the final thing that an awful lot of people forget is that you have to activate a template. So you can have templates, let's say you might have some sort of communication that is about Easter celebrations or something like that, that you only want to be available during the Easter period. So you could create your template, activate it, then deactivate it when you don't want people to be able to use it anymore. You don't need to delete it because then you're going to have to rebuild it again next year, but you can just deactivate it. But the point is, use the blue button towards the top to activate this one. Now, let's make sure that that worked. I'm going to, let me go back to Alan Whitehead's record. You've seen that before. I'm going to do what I did before, which is go to the email symbol and click send with your Workbooks email. And if I go to sales, good. There's my JHM test, so that bit worked, that's good. I'm just going to click on it. Let me make this a little bigger. And you can see, as I say, completely nonsensical, but it says hi, Alan, because I asked for the first recipient's first name to go in there. I popped in the employer name. Alan works for Atlantic Computer Services. I put in his interests field, which is a multi-select field, so I've got some comma separated things that he's into. And I also dropped in that extra template placeholder, the sort of special ones, to reflect the current date and time. So all of that's worked, which is great. So now I can send my email using the button at the top. Or another really nice enhancement is if I use the down arrow, instead of sending it now, I can send it later. When I click on that, this is self-explanatory. You do this without me showing you. You pick your date and time, maybe tomorrow at whatever time it might be. Let's do 7 a.m. Schedule send. And it will just happen magically for you at the right date and time. If you want to see any of those pending emails, if you go to Start Emails, go to your email landing page, and go to the outbound emails, you will see, here's the one called Test. That's the one I've just set up. It says it's got a status of pending because it's not ready to go yet. it will go at the specified date and time. But if in the meantime I change my mind, I can go back and open it and cancel the send. It will return this particular email to what we call a draft state. And now I can either send it immediately or pick a different date and time to send later. So hopefully that made sense. Before moving away from emails entirely, whilst I'm not going to demo the whole setup to you, I wanted to emphasize that it is now much easier to set up your email accounts because we give you the option to send via Office 365. And it means that users don't have to manually populate the server details. Let me show you. Within Preferences, some of you will have done this. So within Preferences, and if I go to Email Accounts, let me just open this one. The top email connection at the moment, this one is set to send via an SMTP email server, which is fine, but you have to know all the server details here, which lots of users quite understandably don't know, whereas you can select Microsoft Office 365. If you do that, users will be prompted to log in using Microsoft, and you will need to grant permission for Workbooks to be the sender of your emails, to kind of act as your email client in effect. And more information about that is available on our knowledge base. So I encourage you to go and have a look at that if you want to explore it. And whilst talking about that, actually, another benefit of setting up your account to use Office 365 is that if you start using Workbooks to send emails from, your Workbooks emails, if you like, will appear in your sent items folder within Outlook. And I know a lot of customers have expressed to me, well, I would use Workbooks more, but I like to be able to see everything in Outlook. Well, you can, because it will be in your sent items folder. So hopefully, with that knowledge and combined with the benefits of using the email assistant, you hopefully will sort of get on the trail of actually using these and sending professional and consistent emails in a much easier way from within Workbooks. I'm going to switch back to my slides to talk about changes we've made to reporting. Before this spring release, if you wanted to build a report on activities, but just on meetings or just on tasks, you had to base your report on activities and then use a criterion to exclude the type of activities that you didn't want to see. Now, though, if you want to report on tasks, you can start your report there. And similarly, if you just want to report on meetings, you can start there. It's a small change, but it does make it much easier to focus on the records of interest and not have to apply so many criteria. Another useful enhancement that I mentioned in the introduction was that you can now set column header text and values in the column to wrap if you choose to. And it just makes reports much easier on the eye and removes the need to do that kind of hover over the column header to see the full title. The third change is that it's now possible, those of you who are using sales leads and opportunities, it's now possible to build reports that join the two together so that you can see exactly which lead generated which opportunity, or conversely, if you start on opportunities, which lead did this opportunity come from? You can look at it from both sides of the coin. Again, let me show you that within Workbooks. And I'm just going to close everything down because I'm getting a little bit cluttered at the moment. So in terms of starting reports that you can just focus in on tasks or meetings, if I use the Start button, New Report, I'll just choose a pre-populated report. You've still got the ability to start your report on activities if you choose to. We haven't taken that away. But if I scroll down, here we are. I could just start my report on meetings, or further down, I could start my report on tasks. It might seem quite small to those of you who don't do reporting very often, but for those of you who do, I think you'll probably find that really useful. Let's have a look at the joining leads and opportunities together. Before the session, built a very simple report. It's here on my desktop. I'll open it up. I started my report looking at leads, and I applied a criteria so that I'm just looking at leads that have a status, if you look on the right-hand side, of converted. Let me just scroll all the way over to the right so that you can see the final column at the moment is lead source. I can edit this report. And now if I want to know, did any of these leads end up being opportunities, and if so, which one? I can click on Add Column, and I'm just going to start typing the word opportunity, and you can see it's brought up related opportunities. I'll select that. What I'm seeing now is an alphabetical list of all the fields that exist on opportunity records, and I can choose whichever one I want. I'll maybe choose the name of the opportunity, and I will give the column the title opportunity name. Save and close. And if I load the preview and scroll over to the right, there it is. Opportunity name is there. I'll drag it to the left just to make it a little bit easier to see. So I've got sales lead name as the first column and opportunity name as the second one. Let me just save that, otherwise it'll pop that column back over to the right. And I can see exactly, there's some slightly odd leads here, but I can see exactly which lead resulted in which opportunity. So it's a really granular way of working out, well, which were my good leads, because you can see that. In addition, this was what I wanted to show you as well, was about wrapping text. If I go to the View tab next to columns, again, you do this without me telling you, but I just want to highlight it's there. I've got the option to wrap column headers. And if I select that, then I've got the choice of where do I want to align those values. So a little bit like you can in Excel, at the top of the field, in the middle, or at the bottom. Just to make it different, I'll choose middle. And similarly, I can also wrap column values if I choose to. So if I tick that, and I've got the same choice of alignment, so I'll put those in the middle. And how many maximum lines do I want to wrap? I'm going to click Run on that report. Now, I just need to open up that first column slightly. But you can see those first two columns, the sales lead name and the opportunity name, both are now wrapping. The opportunity name fits in the width I've got in terms of the header, but if I just make that slightly smaller, there we go, it's wrapped. And the content is wrapping as well, because that's what I asked for. I think that this makes reports much easier to see. And you don't have to, as I say, hover over the top of the header to find the entire name of the column. I've applied this to some of the reports within our system here in the office, and people seem to be liking the effect of it. And I've also done it for a couple of customers who've also given really good feedback. So it will take a little while for you to go around the reports that you want to change, but it is worth investing that time when you've got 5 minutes here or there. I think it does make the reports much easier to interpret. Now, as I say, I started this particular report on leads and drilled through or joined onto opportunities. But if I'd started my report on opportunities, I could have taken a similar approach. And instead of joining on to opportunities, as I did with the sales leads, if you type in sales leads, you'll get an option to join to related sales leads when you start with opportunities. So give that a go. Next topic I wanted to talk about was relating people to records. And when I'm talking about records, I'm talking about specific types of records. I'm talking about opportunities, cases, and transaction records. So things like invoices and orders and quotes, that kind of thing. Very often you do want to relate people to those records. So with an opportunity, you might want to get a good idea of the decision-making unit involved in that particular deal. Or if it's a case record, the people who are affected by the support case or who are involved in trying to resolve it, for example. And similarly with transactions, who is it that's the primary contact for a transaction? Who's the person that's actually going to pay this? That kind of thing. Now, you've always been able to add people to these records within Workbooks, but it took quite a few clicks to do it, and especially if you were wanting to add multiple people to the record at the same time. So we've made that much easier, and again, it's easier for me to show you in Workbooks rather than just talk about it. So I'll get rid of my report there. Let's see, I've got an invoice record here, which I'll open up for Atlantic Computer Services. We can see here on the left that that's who the customer is. If I want to relate some people to this, maybe I want to add, there's a couple of people who I know work for Atlantic. There's Alan that we've already looked at, and there's someone called Gracie. So if I go to the People tab and click on the Add Relationship button at the top left, what now happens is that you are given a place to identify who you want to add to the record, but we've already kind of applied a filter, if you like, to the search terms. We've already said, oh, look within the context of this customer, Atlantic Computer Services, and it's given me the list of all the people who work for Atlantic. So I said I wanted to add Alan and Gracie. You used to have to add people one at a time, but now I can add them both at the same time, and use the green button at the top, set relationships. And you can see I've got a row for each of those people. So what's Alan's relationship to the invoice? Well, let's say he's the commercial contact and Gracie might be the technical contact. Your choice, obviously. And then I just use the green button to relate them to the invoice. Now you might be saying, well, that's fine, but what if I want to relate someone who doesn't work for the customer? That's fine too. I'm going to click the Add Relationship button, and I'm simply just going to remove Atlantic Computer Services from the search. Let's say I wanted to add our Workbooks CEO, John Cheney. So instead of it defaulting to Atlantic there, I'll type in John, search for him, there he is, tick the box, set the relationship, just as you've seen before, this time just for one person instead of multiple. I don't know what his relationship to that invoice is, and click Related People. So I've just shown you doing that on a transaction record, an invoice, but let me show you doing it on an opportunity. Here's one that I'll open up. Now, in our last release, we introduced this concept of having an overview panel on the right-hand side on case records and on opportunity records like this one. So I've got some people already in an overview. Hopefully some of you switched this on, and if not, have a chat with us and we'll help you do that. But if I click the plus button here, instead of going to the People tab at the top of the main record, I can click on the plus button, and from here on in, the functionality is exactly the same. You can see it's the same dialog box. It's searching for Atlantic Computer Services and offering me some people to add. I'll do the same too again, just because they're at the top there. And I can click Set Relationships. Just as before, I set their relationships, maybe primary contact. But when you're adding people to opportunities or cases, you also have this status field, which is really about their sentiment. So I can say, oh, well, I don't know what Alan thinks of this particular deal. Whereas with Gracie, she's an influencer, and I know she's really positive about it, let's say. Click on Relate People, and you'll see them on the right-hand side in the overview panel. I think what's really nice about using the overview panel here is you get that extra visual hint because you get a colored bar across the top of the person record telling you whether they are, well, you don't know what their sentiment is or whether they're positive, and if they were negative, it would show in red, but I've sidestepped that one. Back to my slide deck. Sorry, I know I'm hopping around a lot. I hope it's making sense for you all. The next topic is about enhancing form layouts, and what we've done to help give you a bit more flexibility in the way that your forms look, instead of showing a field label in its default position of just to the left of a field, you can choose whether you show the label at all, and if you do, is it above the field or hidden? So default to the left, above or hidden are the three choices. Let me show you. On this screen grab here of a case record, you'll see that there's a red box around the summary and description labels, which are in the default position of to the left of the field. Subtle change there. It's exactly the same case record, but this time the labels have been put above the fields. And again, exactly the same record. This time I've left the summary label above the summary field, but I've hidden the description label entirely. And you can see that the effect of that is that it's kind of removed the gap between the two fields and looks, in my opinion at least, a little bit neater on the form. Obviously, you've got to be a little bit careful if you're removing field labels to make sure they're fields that make complete sense to the user. They don't need the label to guide them as to what that field is supposed to contain. To do that, let me just show you quickly how you would do that within Workbooks. Again, I'll just clear the screen, make it a little bit easier to see. If you're familiar with customizing forms, this will be very intuitive. So to do it, you go into Configuration, and from there, Customization, Record Types. On the right, choose the record type where there's a label that you want to modify. I'll choose Cases. And you can modify this based on the form layout. So you could hide the field on one form layout but have it showing on another. So it's form layouts that you need to go to. I'll open the support cases layout. I'm not actually going to apply this change, but just show you where you can find it. Open the Fields tab, and let me just pick Assign To, seeing as it's there at the top. The third box down says Label Behavior, and by default it will say Default unless you change it. But the other two options are there. You can move it to show above the field, or you can hide it entirely. If you're going to change from the default, do remember to save and close it. I'm not going to change it, but if you do, remember to save and close it, and save and close your form layout to make sure that the change is applied. Discard those changes. I'm not actually going to do it. Oops. Now, our new file storage plugin. Some of you may have used the previous plugin that we developed, and remember that was what allowed you to create and access SharePoint folders and files from within Workbooks via an iframe. But Microsoft is slightly bigger than us, and they made a change that meant that we weren't able to use that original plugin anymore. The iframe part of it didn't work. So we've developed a new one, and we think it's better. I'll try and tell you why. You can use the plugin to create fields that allow you to store files within Workbooks or within SharePoint. Just as a side note, we are hoping to expand and to allow you to use other file storing mechanisms like Box, for example. But for now, it's either within Workbooks or SharePoint. And you can add these fields to any type of record. So for example, you might want to add a file field to a case record where you can maybe store documents relevant to that particular case, photos of the damage, if that's what it is. Whereas you might add a SharePoint field, for example, that creates a hierarchy of folders against an organization record. You can also, if you wanted to, instead of creating it as a field, you can create that as a tab. And whichever you're doing, one of the really nice things about it is that if you're wanting to add files, you can just drag and drop them into the field or onto the tab, depending how you've set it up. So let me show you some of this at least. Again, I'll close things down. Open up the case record. It's the one that we showed the screen grab for earlier, actually. If you look pretty much in the middle of the screen, you can see this field called case files. That's just a nominal name. I happen to type that in. You can call it whatever you want. That's not a product of the plugin itself. There are three buttons over on the right. If I hover over the I, if I were to click on it, it would take me to our knowledge base information about the file storage plugin. There's a refresh button and there's a plus button, upload a new file. Let me do that. What that's done, I'm just going to make it slightly smaller so you can see both at the same time, hopefully. What that's done is open up File Explorer for me. And obviously I can navigate through here and maybe go to my pictures or whatever it is and find the file that I want to add. I'll grab this PNG file and I can just drag and drop it. Can you see that it says copy? If I drag it in there, let me close out of here. You can see we've got the dots whirring around. And if I use the ellipsis here and just open up the field a little bit more, there you can see that the PNG file has gone in there. What that's actually done is add it as a file to Workbooks. If I go to the Files tab, which we've had for years, if I go there now, it's just refreshing, you can see the icon has gone in there. Okay. If I uploaded another file here, this is a bit more long-winded. I have to go and browse for things, which is why we think it's really nice to be able to drag and drop them in via this mechanism. I would show you, I'd like to show you the SharePoint integration, but on this demo database, I don't have access to the SharePoint site that has been linked to the demo database, so I can't actually demonstrate it to you. But the same functionality exists in terms of being able to drag and drop files into the SharePoint field, if that's what you've created. This particular field is just about adding files to a Workbooks record. But with SharePoint, you still get that visibility of them. You can add your files directly into SharePoint or via Workbooks, but you'd have visibility of them. We're on the home straight now. So the other section, a few other changes. They're sort of relatively minor, but worth knowing about. Those of you who are using our mapping functionality, we've modified the radius functionality. It used to show as a square around your central point. It now shows as a circle around it, which just seems to make much more intuitive sense in terms of radius from a place. Okta authentication. As well as being able to authenticate your Workbooks access via Microsoft, you can now authenticate via Okta, which, if you don't know, is an identity as a service platform. If you're not familiar with that kind of functionality or with Okta, that's fine. But if any of you are using it and want to access Workbooks via Okta, you now can, or perhaps in the future if you move to it. And another small change, but for those of you who are using custom records in the system, it used to be that they had to have a name field, but we've changed it so that you're no longer forced to give each record a name, which is a great relief to some people, I think. Okay, I know I've covered quite a lot, so I don't know if any questions have come in while I've been talking away, but let me see if I can see.
Jean, they have. Hopefully everyone can hear me. So the first one was while you were looking at email templates, and I think you answered it later on, but I'll just go over it again. So they asked about salutation. The default for new contacts says Dear Alan. Has this changed to just Alan as the email template says Hi Alan? So I think you answered that later when you showed how to build the template.
Hopefully I did. So the placeholder that I used, I typed in the word hi and chose the recipient's first name. What I could have done is choose the placeholder that is called salutation. If I'd chosen that placeholder, whatever is in the salutation field for that person record is what would be substituted into the template. So if your salutation field says, I'm trying to think, I know there's quite a formal way of doing this in German. I don't know if any of you are German or speak German. I think things like Herr Doctor, for example. If your salutation said, my dearest professor, if it said that, I'm not saying it would very often, but if it did, if you used the salutation placeholder, didn't type in the word hi, just put the placeholder in, then what would appear would be whatever I just said, my dearest professor. But what I did was put hi, I could have put dear or hello and chose the first name. I could choose the full name. It could have said Dear Alan Whitehead if I chose to. So it's a question of how accurate is your data within the system? Is the salutation always populated? Is it accurate? Is it polite? But that's up to you, but you can put the placeholder of your choice in there. Hopefully that answers that.
Excellent. The next one then is, can you edit existing reports with the new wrapping text tool?
If you mean by that, can you apply text wrapping to existing reports? Absolutely. You simply go into the report, go into whichever view of the report you're interested in. So you may have a details view, you may have summary views, and go to the View tab. You'll see those two checkboxes there that you can tick to apply the wrapping. And equally, if you try out the wrapping or build a new report that's got that wrapping in place and decide, actually, I don't like it, just switch it off on that particular view. Yeah.
Excellent. And I think this is, this is our final one. Does the file storage plugin mean that the storage in Workbooks is minimal?
Minimal. I think it depends how you're using that file storage plugin. If you're using it in the way that I just showed you, which is about uploading files into Workbooks, I just put a PNG file of a target icon in there. If you're doing that, then you are adding records to Workbooks, which ultimately, depending on the size of them, will increase your storage usage of Workbooks. However, if what you're doing is using the plugin to provide, for want of a better phrase, a link, the ability to view your SharePoint files, then no, because all you're doing is viewing SharePoint via the mechanism of Workbooks, but it's SharePoint that you're putting the documents into, and that's where you're using the storage. Hopefully that makes sense. Any more questions?
Ooh, one more has just come in. What
Yep.
plans are there to develop the box integration in the future?
Oh, I can see who's asked that. Hope you're well. I don't know that there are specific plans in place with a timeline against it at the moment, but if box integration is important to you, my recommendation would be get in touch with us, speak to your account manager, explain that it's something that you are keen to develop. I'm sure you wouldn't be the only one either, in fairness. Speak to your account manager, and my understanding of the way that the plugin has been designed is that we did think, yep, there are definitely going to be requirements for people to expand the usage of this into other file storing tools. So I think it's kind of been prepped in a way that it should be possible to do with, I wouldn't say no effort, there's always going to be effort, but with less effort than if we hadn't planned ahead for that. So no dateline on that, but contact us, and if it's something that's important to you, we can discuss with you the possibility of extending to be able to do that. Anything else? That's fine. If you think of anything afterwards, then just let us know and we will answer individual questions by email if we need to. So, just before I finish, here's a quick reminder of where you can find out more about any of the functionality that I've covered here and things I haven't covered here as well. Hopefully you all know by now that our knowledge base has information on all things workbooks, so do use that. And it also includes information on our releases, so the release notes can be found there, as well as roadmaps for the future. If you're the authorized support contact for your organization and you have specific queries, if there's a problem using something or you don't quite understand the knowledge base, for example, do get in touch with support using the email address support@workbooks.com or the telephone number that's there. And of course, do feel free to keep in regular contact with your account manager so that they can help make sure that Workbooks is aligned with the requirements that you have as a business. Oops. So all that remains for me to say then is a big thank you to all of you. A thank you to Ruth as well for organising the session. I hope you find them useful. It's important to us that you are kept appraised of what's going on in the tool. So if you've got any colleagues who you think would benefit from this, then please ask them to watch the recording of it. Ruth, over the next day or so, will send out emails to all of you that include a link to where you can go and watch the recording if you choose to. And as I say, if colleagues you think could benefit from watching it, then please make sure that they know it's there as well. Apart from that, I will say good afternoon for now, and thank you all very much for watching. Hope we see you on another webinar soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.